Newton, leader of the Green Party, has been able to stay behind for an extra few minutes, Andrew. And this is essentially because you got extremely fired up at the end of the programme. And, you know, I don't want to waste that energy, because energy, you shouldn't be wasted, should it?
Touche. Yeah.
And so the reason that we got quite passionate at the end of the programme was because I was putting some of Environment Minister Geoffrey Boot's comments to you. There was a programme yesterday, Agenda, featuring a long interview with Ewan Gorn, local democracy reporter. And I put some of the points to you, but there's a few more that we just didn't get to. So I really wanted to run some of these by you. There was a mention of wind turbines as well. What do you make of the idea of wind turbines? Should we be, I don't know, there's talk of it. Do you think that they would be a good thing to have here?
Yeah, I think wind turbines, any renewable energy that's going to produce energy without pumping carbon into the atmosphere, etc., is going to be beneficial. Wind turbines, obviously, they've drawn issues because people think the Isle of Man, aesthetically, they're going to damage that. Onshore, wind turbines are much better than offshore. So, I mean, having them on the island would be the ideal, but having them in the ocean, obviously, is much better than trying to extract gas and or oil and then pumping it out to produce energy into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. So wind turbine, great. Solar is a huge opportunity that individuals can start doing now. They don't need to wait until the Isle of Man government make a strategic decision about pumping money into building a wind farm. People can start putting solar panels on their roof now, and it's incredible to see how the price has fallen globally. And we're already seeing places, Western Amenity Site, you can go on their website. I think it's something like wcas.im or something like that, but you can search on Google and you can see exactly how much electricity they're making currently, right now, out of their electricity, out of their solar panels on their roof. And we've got a big development in Mount View. That's a big one. I think it's over 50 kilowatt panels, or maybe even that in the region, and it's huge. That's really big, and that's great to see businesses taking decisions now for the future of the Isle of Man, going, okay, we're not going to wait for the Isle of Man government, stagnant, granting licenses to extract hydrocarbon, and arguing, we can't build wind farms. But the Isle of Man public can take this chance. They can lobby their MHK, but they can also go and invest some money into solar panels, which are going to have returns on that investment for the individual. So there's an economic decision to be made on price and return of investment, which is only becoming more attractive every year. We're seeing it. But
what sort of outlay are we talking, though? Because you might get a return on your investment, but what sort of money do you need in the first place to start installing solar panels?
So I'll summarise it very quickly, because I think there's companies on the Isle of Man doing this. You can contact them, and I'm sure they can sort it all out for you. I think in some of the prices I've looked online, I don't know exactly the prices online on the island, but you might be paying £3,000 or something for 4 or 5 kilowatt panel. There are extras to that, fitting it, free bank utilities and things like that, and a battery pack you might need. But that could produce enough electricity for maybe 300 kilowatt, 400 kilowatt hours over July, for instance, and that is a very healthy return of electricity. Obviously, you're going to get a lot less in December, but that's going to really eat into your electricity bill. And what I'd like to see the government taking the lead and going, we'll do some buyback of that surplus electricity you're producing, and that would be great. That's what I'd like to see in Alf Cannon's treasury budget: electric cars and a buyback of renewable electricity that's produced by Isle of Man citizens.
Why haven't electric cars been more popular on the island then? Because you'd think that the island is the perfect sort of small contained space where actually we could almost be used as a control bed for like an entire community just running on electric cars, couldn't we?
Christy, it's a paradox that keeps me awake at night. They've got a huge generating capacity at the CGGT plant at Pulrose, more than the island needs, and they're not going, well, we need to sell electricity to pay down the massive debt we've got. Why don't we encourage people to buy electric cars and then buy electricity from us to fuel them, rather than pumping out all the particulates into the atmosphere? And we're seeing Geoffrey Boot's comments about, oh, well, we don't really need to test for particulates, and nitric oxide or what particulates that are going to damage people's health and give people asthma. We don't need to test that. We don't need to look and make a public health issue out of it, which it quite clearly, patently is. But that's going to be ameliorated by electric cars, and also pumping out CO2 as we're driving around. So a government scheme, the UK scheme, is I think £4,500 a grant to buy an electric car. I'd like to see something of that nature in Alf Cannon's Treasury budget. Going, yeah, we do want to make a positive future where we're not pumping out particulates, where we're not pumping out CO2, and where people can have the opportunity to buy electric cars. They want to make the right choice. They want to make a positive future for the children of the Isle of Man.
Do they, though? Because there is that thing of we do need to also really connect with the consumer to get them to actually think, yes, I would like an electric car. Everyone wants an electric guitar, an electric car. But there are still plenty of people who just don't like the idea of them and would rather have, sort of, because they don't think that either they're fast enough or powerful enough, or they don't like the idea of trying to find a plug to, sort of charge them up or having to charge. There are people who are still against the idea. So how do you speak to them and actually get them to buy into the idea of electric cars?
So again, economics wise, market failures. We've got cars that are pumping out CO2 into the atmosphere, pumping out particulates into our school children's throats, and then inhaling them, walking outside their schools every day. That's terrible. That's a market failure. We've got pollution and no one's accounting for it. There isn't a tax intervention or anything like that. Well, there is a mild one in terms of road tax and stuff. If you've got an old car, then you get a tiny bit more road tax, but that's only negligible. So we've got a market failure. That's when the government should be intervening, going, what's the positive future? The positive future is electric cars where they don't pump out CO2 and they don't pump out particulates. We should be intervening into the marketplace to bring about that end place. That's not planned economy. That's market intervention to address a market failure. That's Dr. Cecil Peugeot in his 1926 work, The Welfare Economics. So the Isle of Man government isn't doing that. So the consumer at the moment is still lagging behind before the market catches up with the problems, and governments do intervene harsh. And the Isle of Man government should be taking action now.
So do you think that maybe our MHK should lead by example and all have electric cars?
Absolutely. Well, I know Ralph Peake's got one. So MHK, electric car, taking the lead, that's positive. Would like to see other people take that example as well.
We talked a little bit on Women's Day about climate change, because one of the big things that Environment Minister Geoffrey Boot said was, I'm not a climate change skeptic, but I am practical. And your comments were essentially, he's kind of missing the point here, and actually there is a real issue with climate change. And one thing we didn't have time to do was sort of counter that by saying there are still people who would say, do you know what? The world, throughout history, if you look at figures, things have come round. We've had ice ages, we've had the climate has warmed up in the past, and we're just going through another one of those stages. What would you say to that?
Well, I don't have a compassionate word for such observations or such spurious observations. I mean, there's no foundation to it. It's ridiculous. The science is out there. I would like to see people who, when people challenge me on this, the few minority, I go and read the IPCC report. Go and draw your own conclusions. Don't watch a 2-minute YouTube video that just is, again, I struggle to really appraise them appropriately, because the language wouldn't be suitable.
So do you then, I presume that in your role you do look at every possible angle, so you have looked into all of the different sides of research?
Well, I mean, I'm only human as well, and there are nuances about everything, but the science on the climate change, I spent a long weekend going through the IPCC report, and I've looked at others in the past, and when I went to the United Nations in 2012 and addressed there, I mean, they were talking about climate change being a huge issue there, but we go back to 1995 and we have on the island Doug Fox, who was one of the co-authors of the IPCC report in that year, I believe, in 1995, and he's a visiting professor and has spent half his year in, I think he's from the States, Colorado, but we have the luxury of him, and I've managed to speak to him, and that's great to see. They were talking about this in 1995, and now we're in 2018, and we've still got the issues, but the outcomes are so much more pronounced for real people around the world, not just in scientific journals, but actually impacting people. I referred earlier to the sinking of this island in a few weeks ago, but now we should be ever more cognizant of that impacting the Isle of Man, and we all share this bond as Homo sapiens around the world, and we should all come together now and challenge it, the climate threat.
So how good are we on the Isle of Man then at being aware of these issues? Do you think that the general populace are aware, sufficiently aware?
Well, I mean, Geoffrey Boot got elected, so so I'm not going to say we're 100% fully on board with what we should be. Obviously, I'm progressing an agenda, which is climate change is happening now. We need to respond to it. We need to be a global community and an Isle of Man community to challenge this complex threat that's going to take an accord not on the island, but also globally, us acting alongside, in pursuit of the Paris Accord, a response to climate change. Are we engaged? Well, we are. We're an affluent society. We are an informed society with a very good education system. Many graduates on the Isle of Man, and that's all important and positive. And we've got great communication systems that provide the opportunity to access this information. Unfortunately, we can also access spurious information, which can pollute or muddy the water somewhat.
But then, how at the end of the day, how do you know which is which?
Well, exactly. So that's why we need to take account of a variety of sources and consider both information that we see aligns with our beliefs, but also challenge ourselves with information that doesn't necessarily do so. And I'm challenged every day. I most certainly do not have all the answers, and I learn every day. And I'm exposed to people who have contrary views to me on many things. And that's important, and that really refines our understanding, not only of the issues that we think are important, but the means to communicate what we see as important to people who not necessarily align themselves with our views.
So, okay, so then let's break it down to some simple things that we can do as individuals that you think we can all do to make little changes in our life that would actually help this situation.
So one of my favourite authors, actually my favourite author at the moment, an inspired, profound individual named Yuval Noah Harari. He's written 3 books: *Sapiens*, *Homo Deus*, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. And his statement, when asked this at an event recently where Russell Brand was the compere, was from a 6th form student, what can I do? And his number one thing was join an organisation, because one individual, they can make decisions, and as a collective, they can create profound change. But as an individual, you can become alienated or lack inspiration and feel that these challenges are too big for one person. So what he said was we should be collectivizing, we should be creating communities and responding to these issues as communities, sharing in the problem, breaking up the problem. So I mean, there are many positive groups doing these things on the Isle of Man Friends of the Earth, the One World Centre, many other groups, and I would say, obviously, I'm here today as the leader of the Isle of Man Green Party, and I'd say come and engage with the Green Party, join it. Not necessarily have to join it. Get on the email list. We've got an interested person's email list. You can get the information about the party without being a member. If you're maybe sceptical or you're unsure, you don't want to join a political party. The important thing is you're engaging with the issues, and we are articulating what the Isle of Man government should be doing, what individuals should be doing, what civil society should be doing. It's a collective response. And to pick some examples, where I've talked about solar panels. I mean, not everyone can afford to go out and buy solar panels, but lobbying your MHKs and lobbying them and lobbying the government and going, for instance, the councils, the local councils, they've got a large collection, they've got a large housing stock of social housing which have roof, they need heating, they need energy, and they, as a large institution, local council, could buy in solar panels at a much cheaper price as individuals.
Build eco-homes from the outset, so actually you
Absolutely,
don't necessarily need it.
Housing.
Yeah, passive housing.
You're absolutely right, Christy. And so there are a range of opportunities, but Yuval Noah Harari exactly got it right. Collectivizing as communities, as a response to these threats, as a civil society.
we are stronger together.
Absolutely,
I think is the phrase.
yeah.
Andrew Newton, thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon, and all the best.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.